Welcome to The Screen Queen, the show where I'll be talking about your favorite show or your favorite movie. You'll just have to find out what you're about to know. This is your Screen Queen, your host, Samantha Parrish. Well, hello, you. I see you're looking for a specific podcast about movies and TV shows. Okay, I'll bite. I see you're not the kind of person that just goes for any podcast. You're looking for a specific podcast that is very observant and specific about various movies and TV shows to your liking. Well, you've come to the right place. Hello there, and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for enduring that very interesting Joe Goldberg-esque introduction to, well, you. Of all the shows that has ever been created, we've never really had one that had you siding with the bad guy this much. But then also make you question, why does the bad guy make sense? But honestly, that's the reason why people kept coming back to you. You took the world by storm when it came out in 2018, and now 4.5 seasons later, it is still continually being talked about. It's continually being memed. Even the star of the show has finally come around to his iconic role. But why is You so popular? Why is You one of those shows that people can't stop talking about for the fact that you're basically rooting for the bad guy? Joe Goldberg is a sociopathic stalker character that's going to stop at nothing to get the object of his affection. I mean, he takes every breath you take to an extreme level. Well, just like Joe Goldberg, the show doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. With every episode becoming more intriguing and insightful, there's a lot that goes into this show, and there's a lot that I'll be talking about the show, with certain fun facts, various commentaries, and how the show has been societally impacted, as well as my own thoughts I have about the show. So, let's get on with it. This is You. Before we officially get into You, there's a couple things I just want to address. One, I feel like I have to give a trigger warning. There are some heavy subjected material in this heavy subjected material show that I will be talking about, and I feel like it would be fair if I didn't just give that warning so people be aware. Second thing is that I am going to be going season by season for the commentary about the show. I figured that's best than having to just pick a random scene from a random episode and then have to just go all over the place, and that's just not how it works here. So, now that you know how the show is going to go, let's get into it. So with Joe being a very observant character, it does make you wonder, where did we get Joe from? Where did he come from? How did this whole idea for a charming sociopathic stalker character to come from? Well, his origin story, ironically, comes from a book. You came from the novel You, written by Caroline Kneps. I don't know if I got her name right or wrong. I just don't know. I'm just kind of winging the whole pronunciation of her last name. When she wrote You in 2014, it took the world by storm. People couldn't get enough of it. Stephen King himself even hailed her book series You and its sequel Hidden Bodies as some of the most thrilling things he's ever seen. That is some high praise coming from someone that literally makes nightmares in seconds. And then 4 years later, it's so popular that they really have to see Joe on the big screen. And they chose that big screen with Lifetime. Yes, You was originally a Lifetime series before they realized, it's a little bit dark for Lifetime. I think we need to go shopping a little bit more and see where we can put You at. And then Netflix came along like, hello, may we take this series off your hands and give you the credit that it came from your studio first? And it's the strangest thing I've ever heard to know that Lifetime and Netflix have something in common. It even has a couple of promotional posters that says Lifetime's You or Coming to Lifetime. Like, wait, what? As much as Netflix has pulled out some of the greatest TV shows, there's also been some decisions that Netflix has made that did not pay off for them. And this is one of the rare collaborations where they have made a deal with a network to take a show and put it on their show, similar to what happened with Slasher, that was originally on a Canadian network, was taken into Netflix's distribution, and they finished it for 3 seasons, and then that show carried off somewhere else. But You is the only one, to my knowledge, that has stayed and hasn't been picked up by something else. Like, this is officially one of the most popular shows that has done a lot of great stuff for Netflix. So in a way, would you ever think that a book that came out in 2014 would be one of the saving graces to Netflix? Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that either. So that just seems like a perfect segue to start talking about the first season, our introduction of You. So right off the bat, this season is my favorite. I absolutely loved it, and it's not because it's the first season and because I have so much in common with one of the characters. It's a premise that has been done well. Now, it's not the first time that we've had a plot centered around an author or a writer that is the object of affections. I mean, I mentioned Stephen King earlier. He wrote a whole book about an author that was targeted and tortured by a #1 fan. I think you can kind of see why Stephen King liked the first season so much now, and why he liked the book You. And of course, me as well, with me being an author, that automatically enticed me too, because of the fact that many authors and writers are observers. They tell the stories of others, and they put their own spin on it. So now it's this whole twist that the person who is the observer has no idea that they are being observed. How can you not love a premise like that? I have never before or since seen a TV show that made me forget what the main character does and what the whole point of the main character is. And I mean that in the kindest way. When we're first introduced to Joe, we get his very, very personal thoughts about how he believes he has officially met the one. Again. And we see him interact with Guinevere Beck, and they just talk so naturally, and he has such a charm talking to her that's not laying on too thick, but he's not underlying it. Like, he knows how to do this. And those moments, it does dig into your mind to wonder, okay, alright, he knows what he's doing here. He knows how to be able to talk to these girls and lure them in there, like any sociopath would, to just use what they know that someone would want to hear, or what is normal to hear. There's a lot of deep dive into the whole sociopathic psychology in this, and it's wonderful that we basically get this guidance the whole way through. But then you also get these continual twists in the show where you do see him do things that you wouldn't expect him to do. You think you have him figured out, and then you don't. The whole interaction he has with his young neighbor named Paco is just absolutely heartwarming to see him be like a guidance figure. You get these little niches to know, okay, he's probably cut from the same cloth that Paco is. Even though you don't know anything about him, besides the fact that he has chosen Guinevere Beck as the love of his life, you do know that he's had a hard life. The perfect writing about this whole series with the creation of Joe Goldberg. But then you see Joe pop on the computer and go, oh, that's right, I forgot. He was a stalker. Totally forget about it. It's truly what makes this show such a roller coaster. I mean, we're talking first 20 minutes and you've been given so much information about someone that it makes you question what's going to happen next. You truly can't get enough of what's going to be going on with his vendetta. And it's almost sick because you're watching someone who's watching someone else. But it's so enticing because of the way that we hear Joe. And I'm just going to take a side note real quick just to talk about how popular his character is. The first thing I thought about when I got introduced to Joe was, this is like getting Dexter again. When Dexter came out, people could not get enough of it. Unfortunately, I did not get onto the Dexter train. I completely missed that stop altogether, and I heard tidbits, bits, and pieces, and the one thing I always heard was people liked how Dexter was such an interesting character that observed bad human beings and did bad things to them, and we rooted for him because of the fact that he was going after bad people, because he understood how cruel the world is and justified his actions. Now look at Joe Goldberg. We have someone that clearly is going to do something bad. We know it even though we haven't seen it yet. But knowing the fact that he's very kind to Paco and he knows how to use his abilities, he knows what to put out into the world, and the way that he commentates about stuff, the same things we think about every day. To hear him talk about social media and the very raw thoughts about someone else, and knowing that he's right when we do see their actions come up. You're seeing Joe be right about a lot of things. And then it, of course, makes you think. All of this stuff that we think about every day is coming from the bad guy. And it's like that with most media that we see, that the villain is always given the things that we wish we heard from the good guy. Which is very rare and far in between, because unfortunately, the villains do understand the cruelty of life, and they're not afraid to speak their mind about it. In the pilot episode, when Joe and Beck are talking about their disappointment in people as they're observing some people in the bookshelf, they do have a very accurate line about life. As negative as it would come off, it's also unfortunately true that at the end of the day, people are disappointing. As much as that is a cruel line, it's an honest line, and it's something we've all felt at some point in our life when we have seen someone that disappointed us, or they betrayed us, or we expected more from them, that we can't put our full expectations into someone because of prior experiences. It just takes time to be able to get to know someone, and that can be a little bit tricky. Of course, Joe's got the idea to really play his cards right in the most intense way possible. But now I want to put a spotlight on the character Guinevere Beck. I've talked about Guinevere Beck before on my writer character episode from my other podcast show I do, Paris Passages Podcast. But now I actually get the time to officially devote my absolute love for this character. It might be too soon to say this, and I might be talking out of my ass, but Beck is one of the best writer characters I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of writer characters. She truly does feel like the representation of many authors that have a very frustrating personal life and trying to make the time to write with a lack of creation or a lack of time management or just personal struggles in general. Most times when we see an author character, they're either just struggling to write and all we learn is that they're a writer and nothing about them, or the vice versa, where we learn about a character that has all this stuff going around and they're a writer, but they're not doing anything about it. Beck is the perfect balance of seeing both the personal life and the professional life. Let's go down the line. She is struggling every day with the bills. She's also trying to get through school. She wants to maintain a relationship with her friends. She's also trying to maintain romantic relationships. She has been trying to write but never has the time, and when she does, she's frustrated with what she comes out with. Oh my god, when I saw her character, I never felt more connected to a character in my life. She is as interesting as Joe makes her out to be. And it just kind of makes you wonder, okay, yep, this is inevitable. She's a very interesting person. Of course Joe is going to go after her. But I also want to slide in a very quick fun fact about the first season that's going to make you rethink the way you thought about the pilot episode. So in the first episode, when Joe is just kind of giving up for the day, and then how luck would behold him, Beck is at the same train station, and if you've seen the episode, you know that she's getting frustrated that she never heard from Benji. She falls in the train tracks, and Joe's trying to get her up, and then he finally saves her just in time. That whimsical moment happens, and then she barfs on him. Now that moment was prepared for and trained. Elizabeth Lale and Penn Bagley, I hope I pronounced his name right, they had to take a training course to be certified to go onto the train tracks and perform this stunt. Now, that certification only lasted for 8 hours, but they took a whole week of training in preparation to do this role without getting themselves hurt. That is some real stunt work going on there. That is a real train that is coming to get them, and they both had to act fast. You are seeing professionalism at its finest. It's a small moment, but it doesn't get enough credit for how these two actors went above and beyond to make this scene happen. And as everything was progressing for the first season and all the ups and downs, you knew that something had to come to an end. There's no way that Beck was going to be the one for Joe, and I never felt more sucker punched in the stomach with the way the first season had to end, even though we all knew it was going to happen. With the death of Guinevere Beck, we got to know this character so much, and in a very weird twist of irony, she did get known for her book because of her death. So, despite the fact that she's no longer living, she does live on. But it doesn't take Joe that long to find the next one for him. And that begins the second season, which has so many unanswered questions and an even more intense roller coaster than the first one. And after the first season wrapped up, everyone was on board except for one person. That was Penn Badgley, the main star of You. Penn Badgley detested the role of Joe Goldberg in numerous interviews for all the seasons. He's always been asked if he likes the character, and he would express his discomfort. But the way that he expressed it was a way of just showing his own personal reflection that he does not like this character for what this character does. He never made it a point to crap on the writers or anything, or crapping on his opportunity, because obviously he's still there. He loves being able to be a part of the show, even though the whole premise of that character makes him uncomfortable. But this has been one of those wonderful evolutions to see Penn Badgley find his own way to be comfortable with the character. Because the whole premise is about a guy that is just looking for the love of his life and doing whatever it takes to get there. And there has been memes and certain skits that has been created to spoof the show, and he's joined in with the crowd. He's done numerous skits on TikTok where he will play the character of Joe Goldberg, or he will make fun of Joe Goldberg, and it's just wonderful to see that he truly does love what he's doing on the show, but it's not getting to him like it used to, now that he's found a way to roll with the punches in a way. And it is actually quite wonderful. If you ever get the chance to go on TikTok and look up like Penn Badgley, I think his username is I am Penn Badgley. Oh my goodness, this man is hilarious. He does such a great job, and it's so funny considering prior to the show, Penn Badgley knew nothing about the internet, didn't have a Tumblr, didn't go on Facebook, nothing. He was off the grid. He didn't know anything. The entire 4 seasons he's been on the show, he's been given like a crash course in learning about internet culture, and now he's become a part of internet culture. The second season went in strong. It knew that it was going to have even more twists and turns than the first one, after being given how Joe works and how is he going to work out of it. Is he going to break his stalker ways? Absolutely not. But it's intriguing in the first episode when he's reestablishing himself in another state to get away from his life, to be at the one place he would never be found, California. And within seconds, doesn't take him long, he sees this girl at the supermarket looking at vegetables, and he never fails to make me laugh. He's like, "Hello, you?" No, fuck no, not that again. That was hysterical. Like, oh shit, he's trying, but we know it's not gonna end like that. He's not gonna give up. The next object of his current affections is a woman named Love Quinn. And he tried so hard to not get involved with her life, to know everything about her, but it just became more enticing as he realized he had to utilize more of the internet. And that drove into the next satire commentary about the world of dating apps and social media, and knowing, like, you can observe someone and look at their page on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, everything, but there's still that level that you don't know about them yet, because some people have their account set to private. There are some people who are not their authentic selves on dating apps. It was dived into a little bit in the first season of You, but this got the proper attention with what they did in the second season to further that whole idea about the things that we do every day in our way to learn more about someone without talking to them. This show knew how to do the proper commentary about something we do every day, something that we will admit or we won't admit, that we do have those Joe Goldberg-like tendencies to go and find out everything about someone than actually talking to that person to get our information. And in a way, that is justified because it's a way of keeping ourselves safe, that maybe we don't know something about this person that they would actually prefer to say online. It actually keeps yourself safer and more secure. I've had a lot of friends that do that. I do that. We all do that. It is now normalized observing to be able to learn about someone by going through their profile and keeping yourself kind of safe in a way if they give these little hints and clues. But then a part of me is also kind of questioning why someone is so cut off from social media if they have their account set to private. As much as we don't want to dive into it, like, oh, well, it's private for a reason, it's still in the back of your mind, like, why is it private for a reason? This show knew how to dive into that commentary, especially with the way that we see Joe go about this the way that we would. We haven't seen him do anything deadly yet, that he's just still doing it normalized, as he's still trying to fight those observing tendencies of his. But honestly, the biggest shocker that I got from this season before I got the biggest shocker was finding out that the Penguin was in this season. Even though I didn't know his name at the time, I still recognized without a doubt that Robin Lord Taylor from Gotham made an appearance onto You. I just thought, damn, they're getting some people now. They are working their way up the ladder and getting more profiled people from other popular TV shows or movies. This really felt like a step up from the way the first season came on, when we had these like people that kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't really have actors from other TV shows that were known outside of those TV shows. It was kind of like, oh, it's the guy from that thing. Oh, it's the girl from that thing. I still didn't even know that Penn Badgley was on Gossip Girl prior to You. That was my introduction to him, was on the show You. So in a way, this show may have helped a lot of people get a more profiled name to not be known as, oh, that's the person from You, but they're known by their actual name. This show was really helping a lot of people with their fucking resumes. But another person that we have to talk about, the person that no one has stopped talking about, the person that's been in so much stuff nonstop, the lovely and amazing Jenna Ortega. This was my first introduction to her, and it's amazing to see how far she's come from the show. A lot of people still talk about her on the show Wednesday, and she's now made herself a name in the Scream series, and she knocked out of the fucking park in the horror movie X, which that I can't wait to talk about at some point on the show. But this was how I got to know her, and it's so wonderful that a lot of people still will mention this show along with her other filmography when they go, oh yeah, I remember watching her on You. So it's nice that her what's the word I'm looking for? Her humble beginnings are still echoing in her filmography as she's becoming one of the prime stars of our entertainment society. With the way the whole season went, it was really compelling to wonder how things were going to go. And I, without a doubt, did not see it coming in the end of the whole flipperoo switcheroo. I have never felt more bamboozled in my life. But to find out that Love was actually stalking Joe more than when Joe stalked her, it was like, does this like counter-react? Is this like one of those like it cancels out the other one? How does that work? I'm just so bamboozled with the fact that she went the extra length to kill certain people and to set certain things up and to have this meet cute set up to meet Joe because she said that he is her soulmate. And I'm like, oh my god, I still can't believe this happened. The best way that I can describe this season, and it literally came to mind as I'm recording this, is that what you see between Joe Goldberg and Love Quinn is that you see them both take turns on who becomes the cat and who becomes the mouse. We never know quite sure who's going to fit that role because it looks like they're both kind of like a very... They're both targeted of each other. And that immediately makes Joe lose interest. Like, no, that's my job. I'm supposed to be the one with the unhealthy obsession, not you. Ew, that's gross. With a shocking ending that almost rivals the first ending. So, what's going to happen next now that we know that Love is going to be in this for the long run, or she hopes that she's going to be in this for the long run, as she as equally obsessed with Joe as Joe was obsessed with her. But as things progress, turns out she's got a bun in the oven. So now it's like, okay, now Joe really can't get out of this. This is the one thing that he definitely did not see coming, and probably the one thing that he didn't think of was Love getting pregnant. So he tries the whole thing. He tries to be a good father. However, season 3 came knocking and went, yeah, you know Joe's not going to do that. You know Joe. We're going to have a new obsession going in the 3rd season, and it even teases it at the end of the 2nd season. Now, season 3. Oh man, that was a lot. It was different than the other seasons, but it was a different good and a different I can't really say bad. A lot of people did find something enjoyable from the show as it continued with what Joe was going to do. He was going to be going into fatherhood. He is married now, but he's still going to stalk people. And the way they tackled this different set of satire, it was an echo that was too loud that people took issue with. The way the first 2 seasons worked was having the perfect amount of satire that was socially aware, but it wasn't too socially aware. It just did the cusp of awareness without having to feel it was playing to a certain side. It was just saying things we already knew and things that many people would agree on. However, with the fact that 3rd season was going in during COVID, and having talk about COVID, people took issue with that, with one of the most controversial episodes about the measles. There's an episode where Joe gets an alarming phone call from Love that their son Henry has the measles. And they're trying to figure out, where to get the measles from. Joe's kind of a closed book at this point, so you don't really know if measles came from him, and he doesn't even know if the measles came from him. And Love isn't aware of it. There's a horrific imaginative scenario from Joe that his son is dead, and it is heartbreaking. It's one of the only redeeming parts of that episode where you truly feel what Joe is feeling from other people that have either been scared for their child or they've lost a child, and they know what that feels like. However, that kind of goes out the window when it's taken too seriously from Love when she finds out where Henry got the measles from, that it was from one of the people in their social circle, and he went into an anti-vax rant, and it just irked her so much that she lost control of her emotions, and she smacked that dude in the head. On one side, you can kind of relate to the fact that Love is a scared parent, and she's just frustrated that she came so close to losing her child from someone that failed to tell her that they had the measles. That information couldn't be brought up once it hit the soundboard from a lot of people that were informed about her son's condition. But then you also have one side that's like, hey, you smacked someone in the head and now they're unconscious, and now you have to deal with the repercussions. Anti-vaxxing is such a touchy conversation, and unfortunately the show just they didn't really do a good job with. Some people are not comfortable with that conversation, and it turned a lot of people off. There were a lot of reviewers of the show that didn't like that they had to make the show too socially aware, and they didn't do a good job with how they were going to capture that. Me personally, I saw both sides of it like I mentioned, so that's just kind of the way it happened. You can't get gold every single time. But as much as the show was kind of on that little topsy-turvy roller coaster where it was moving but not in the direction that it went really strong with the first 2 seasons, it still had its compelling storyline that Joe's going to find the object of his affections, and that is Marion. Honestly, didn't see it coming, and there wasn't enough emphasis on her. I 100% did not think that Marion was going to be the center of his affections, that she was going to be the girl. We were misled entirely with the fact that the neighbor was originally the object of Joe's desires and his interest. And then Marion comes along, and I think that redeemed the season, that we got back on track, and Joe was going to find someone that fit him perfectly, or that he felt fit him perfectly. And in a strange way, Marion is like the closest we've ever gotten. Beck was kind of this, I want to say, manic pixie dream girl for him. I don't know if she qualifies as manic pixie dream girl, but she was definitely in the variety of book world that really enticed him. And then Love felt like a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, that was a breath of toxic fresh air, unfortunately. And then there's Marion. These two were cut from the same cloth, with having the similarities of being abandoned by their parents and being placed into orphanages, and how they have this extreme love of books. They have so many things in common that it's like you're rooting for the relationship, but again you realize, wait a minute, Marion, hang on, girl, you might want to run. We unfortunately know this dude is not who you want to be with, as much as he might be the perfect person for you. Just like in a perfect world, if Joe wasn't, well, Joe, he would have been perfect for Marion. And that's what really makes the show enticing, is like, you wish these people weren't the way they were, because it looks like a perfect relationship, because we never know what lurks beyond the surface. And with the way season 3 ended, it had to happen. Joe found a new girl, and unfortunately, Love's gotta go. But she definitely went out in the most chaotic way that would fit a chaotic person like her. I mentioned how the dynamic between Love and Joe is like taking turns who's the cat and who's the mouse. And this was like a tight race to find out how this was going to go, with how they've literally been planting the plan literally in the garden. Love had some plant that she poisoned Joe with, and Joe found out about it and was able to make an antidote, and then he made something that would be able to paralyze her, and it's like, holy shit, man, I've never seen anything more intense in my life since that jump scene from Speed. Oh my god. It's such a dramatic and intense thing, as equal as it is tragic. Even though these two people are just absolutely terrible with the way they have obsessed over people and obsessed with each other. But it's still heartbreaking when Love's final words is wondering what's going to happen to her son. Her son was the only redeeming part about her, that she truly loved being a mom, and that she loved being a mother to Henry, and a part of her even loved being a wife to Joe. It's such a great example of writing to give someone that can be so sociopathic and dangerous, but then have that one quality that makes you feel bad for them for just a moment. So with the end of Love, and of course the end of Joe's life in California, well, what was going to happen to him next? He still has to go get Marion and somehow explain that he's not actually dead and that Love didn't kill him. Well, that's where season 4 comes in, and that's where I have my thoughts about this show. So, it's been on my mind of how in the world is Joe going to be able to continue his relationship with Marion, and how are you going to fix that? How is he going to fix saying, oh, I'm not actually dead, Love was obsessed with me, but I was in love with her, and I stalked her like I stalked you, and I killed your ex-husband? Like, whoa, Joe, it's not going to work, buddy. Oh my god, I was kind of surprised that the focus hasn't been on what I thought the focus was going to be about. I don't know what the hell happened in season 4 for this, like, beginning first half that we had, but I don't know what to think about it, to be honest, but here's what I've thought about it so far. First off, I want to mention a positive point. I like the fact that we're in London for this season. A third season is the make or break, and if you're going to have another season, I mean, you gotta switch things up. This really feels like a game changer for the fact that Joe is now the person being observed when he's been the observer. Yes, Love was obsessed with him and she staged these little meet cutes, but this was entirely different in a realm that he couldn't control. He could understand someone being obsessed with him, but now he can't understand someone that's obsessed with him when he doesn't even know who the hell it is. That's the only dynamic that kept me going because, oh my god, the show took so many directions that it was kind of difficult and almost boring to keep up with. And it pains me to say it because I really do love this show. I think it's amazing. And maybe the latter half of season 4 is going to help out with everything else. But they better with the 5 episodes that we were delivered. I think my main complaint I have about this is that there's too many people. In all the seasons of You, we've had a healthy amount of characters to follow besides Joe, so we get like a palate cleanser to learn about these people that will be talking about him. But there's too many people. We were getting back to Joe here and there, but I haven't learned enough about this person before we're jumping around to the other person that I haven't learned enough about. And this Kate character that came up, I'm like, okay, she's there. Joe's kind of obsessed with her, and then he's kind of not obsessed with her because someone's obsessed with him. I feel like this is the season that is the game changer, but it's also getting too wrapped up in its own game, and it bit off more than it could chew. I feel like it's so compelling that we have the whole dynamic shifted and that we're somewhere else, and we still have so many questions that haven't been answered yet, because every season always delivered all these questions that we need to have answered, but I feel like the questions build more questions on top of those questions, and I'm like, what is going on? Where are we? Season 4 is different than the others, and that's something the show definitely needed to keep going. When would you ever see a show like this one where you would have the premise figured out, that it's someone that's going to be stalking certain people? That would get boring really quick. As awful it is to say that the idea of observing someone else very unhealthily is going to be a boring premise, but if it's done in a way that makes it like a definition of stalking, that it has all the satire piled on top of it, that we still don't know everything about Joe as to why he is the way he is, that has kept people coming back all these years. But so far, this season has really made the fans question if they do want to see Joe in his continual pursuit of finding the one. There was so much that dived in for this season that maybe we'll have all the questions answered at the end, and it better have a very interesting delivery as to why Joe is having to cavort around with the Brit pack. The show does take its twists and turns just like it would every season, and it feels as compelling. It just doesn't feel as strong enough like the other seasons. I don't know if this is a sign that the show is faltering, or that they're really saving the best for last and it's going to hit us in the stomach. It's a little bit hard on the fence to know what's going to be happening as we are going into this season of You, but let's just see what happens in the final episode with what the fate of Joe Goldberg is going to be. And that is all I have for this episode about You. Whew, this was a lot. I don't think I've ever covered a show on the Screen Queen that had 4.5 seasons before, and honestly, I've been looking forward to this episode for quite some time because of how much I love the show and it being something different, and also I don't get the chance to cover new things in the show that often, so it was nice to be able to stay current for once. Okie dokie, now is the time to find out what the next episode is going to be on the Screen Queen. So if you're new to the show, I have a lotto system where I never know what the next episode is going to be. I make that an experience for both of us. I have all of my suggestions crammed into a tiny little bowl that is just stuffed to the gills with pieces of paper of suggestions of TV shows and movies. So I'm going to get this mixed up really good, and we're about to find out what the next episode's going to be. Oh my god, they went flying everywhere. Jesus. Son of a bitch! Man, okay. You don't even know why I'm laughing. I made a mention to this earlier, and now it had to happen, I guess. And I don't mind it because honestly, it's one of my favorites. So that'll be nice to talk about one of my favorite movies. Cool beans. Alrighty. The next episode on the Screen Queen is going to be Speed. I just hope that episode can stay under 50 miles per hour for that episode, because it's probably going to go fast. Okie dokie. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I just want to say thank you to those out there that have been a major support of the show with sharing it and talking about it. I've seen the increased downloads every single day, and it's wonderful to see those numbers continue to grow, and it helps me out so much with this other venture of mine outside of being an author, and that this is a nice little healthy side show that I can do that gets out all the stuff that I've been dying to talk about for so many years, and it's wonderful to have this opportunity finally. But in between uploads, if you would like to catch up with me, talk about the episodes, or just say, hey, love what you do, you can find me at my Instagram at the Queen of the Screen. And if you would like to see the movie-related stuff I talk about on my TikTok, you can find me at the Mystical Space Witch. And if you're interested in finding out the stuff I do as an author, I also have my page linked in the description box to find my book series Inglorious Inc. on Amazon. Alrighty, that's a wrap. Oh boy, this was an interesting episode. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and, take aware of your surroundings, okay? Don't be running into any Joe Goldbergs anytime soon, alright? We just don't need that. Alright, you all take care and stay safe. This is your host, signing off. Bye-bye!